72% of the people who have been hired by the IT companies during the middle of the pandemic, meaning months after the onset of the global pandemic in March 2020, could have quit the company. Now, this is the level of crisis facing the Indian IT sector. As we go further, the next 24 months, this talent shortage could get acute. Now, companies are devising a wide set of strategies to deal with the crisis. Welcome to this ET Explainer on one of the most important challenges faced by the Indian IT sector, attrition. Now, how did this talent shortage and attrition become such a pressing problem for the Indian IT sector?
Well, there are multiple factors to it. One, there's a huge demand in the IT services market right now. And even for an average developer or a technology resource, there are so many options out there if they want to step out of their comfort zone. Two, let's admit it, IT services have never been known for their HR policies. And compared to product companies, the career and financial growth options available on the IT side has always been much slower. Finally, the uncertain situation that the pandemic has caused helped a lot of employees realize that they don't really need to be in office. They have very well shown that there's enough and more work that can be done remotely. The whole argument that was used in the past that the client is not comfortable with it does not work anymore. They can work from anywhere, and remote working has also meant to some extent a lower level of engagement with the employer. A lower level of engagement obviously means lesser attachment to the employer, and thus it is easier for employees to just shift companies whenever they feel uncomfortable. The attrition metric has become the biggest worrying factor for the 227 billion IT services industry, but this is also the best demand environment that they have seen in the longest time. They cannot afford to let go of all of these employees because then they will lose clients. For example, Tata Consultancy Services at 17.4% attrition in Q4 FY22 was probably the highest it has reported ever. They have never gone above 11 or 12% at max, and they have the best retention metrics in the industry. Infosys has gone to almost 28% attrition. HCL is at 21 or 22%, and WIPRO is at 24%. Tech Mahindra for a change reported stable attrition in this quarter, but it's still high across the industry. The scenario is expected to last through FY23, although the companies have started seeing some level of stability in terms of attrition, especially in the last quarter or so. That is also because they have implemented a lot of retention measures. Tech companies across the board are witnessing everyone is basically poaching employees of each other across the technology sector.
It is clear that attrition has a real and immediate impact on operating margins. Some of the companies that have declared their operating margin guidances have clearly said that it is going to have a deep impact. How does attrition have an impact on operating margins?
So if you take a look at Infosys and HCL Tech, they are two of the few companies who give annual operating margin guidance. So in the case of Infosys, they pegged it around 21 to 23%, and HCL Tech pegs their operating margin guidance around 18 to 20% for the full year. And this is at least 100 basis points lower, both in terms of the upper and the lower limit. And the reasons these top management had given for the downgrade was mainly due to the wage related pressures and also the cost at which they are backfilling the vacancies, the lateral hires, and also reskilling of the existing employees. So we spoke to a couple of HR and IT market intelligence firms. So they've also said this wage related pressure would at least continue till the ongoing financial year, and only 2023 calendar year beginning or the beginning of FY24 the operating margins would reach pre-pandemic levels. So one of the companies, IDC, we spoke to had said there would be a margin impact of 150 to 350 basis points in the coming quarters, which is related to wages and other supply side pressures. And also another company called Unearth Insight, they had said around 50 to 150 basis points would be the impact on margins, especially due to attrition.
As we go further, companies are also pivoting to a hybrid work model where employees need not come to office every day. Now, as attrition levels are soaring, companies have to maintain a deeper engagement with employees. And how are they planning to do it in the hybrid work scene?
I think the biggest difference that the pandemic has made for employees has been this acceptance of work from home and work from anywhere for employees. Companies and employees clearly have come to that understanding that as long as we are doing our work, as long as we are showing productivity, it should not matter where we are working from. And a lot of companies, in fact, if you would see, even be it a TCS or Infosys, WIPRO, HCL, Tech Mahindra, all of them have been very careful about communicating at what point they want their employees to return to their offices, because they understand that this has become critical in retaining employees. And companies are going to the extent of saying that you can decide how many days you want to attend office. You can decide if you want to come to office maybe once a month or for maybe 1 week every month, and so on. A lot of companies have gone to a complete remote working mode. Companies are actively trying to engage with employees, trying to understand their thought process. It's no more about sending out wellness mailers anymore. It's a lot more about actively trying to understand what is the employee sentiment like. For example, HCL Technologies is implementing a sentiment tracker to understand where, at what point employees start losing interest in the job, and they are trying to kind of bring in interventions at an early stage. There's also a lot of emphasis on hiring freshers at this point, because in IT services, unlike in products and SaaS-based companies, in IT services you can have one maybe skilled senior teaching a large number of freshers for that matter, which helps the IT services companies to control costs.
So beginning of last year, TCS and Infosys had pegged a fresher hiring target of 40 to 50,000, but they ended up the year with 1 lakh and 80,000 freshers in the case of TCS and Infosys respectively. So this year again they've pegged a similar number, 40,000 and 50,000 freshers, but when we spoke to experts, they said again the companies will end up overshooting this number.
It is clear now that employee relations, culture, and engagement are going to be the buzzwords for the Indian tech sector in the coming 24 months. And what sets companies apart is the way that they have invested early on in building a distinctive culture. We will continue to watch this space. Thanks for watching this video.